Episode 22, The Solstice Vigil. The winter solstice arrived with crystalline clarity, frost painting intricate patterns across the grand hall's new windows. Elena stood before Cassian's frozen form in the pre-dawn darkness, watching how the first light touched the corruption patterns that mapped his skin like constellations. 3 pulses, pause, 2 pulses. She'd been maintaining the communication pattern for 3 weeks now, documenting every response, every variation. The notebook Seraphina Thornweave had started nearly 3 centuries ago lay open on the marble floor beside her, Elena's own entries filling the remaining pages. Soon she would need to start a new volume. The solstice celebration begins at sunset, Elena said quietly, her breath misting in the cold air that perpetually surrounded Cassian. The king wants me there. Says it's important that the keeper be seen participating in normal court functions. She traced the geometric patterns of his corruption with her eyes, following the circuit she'd memorized. Says I need to show the kingdom that maintaining this vigil doesn't mean abandoning life. The corruption patterns pulsed once. Cassian's version of agreement, she'd learned. Or perhaps acknowledgement. The language they were building together remained frustratingly limited. I think he's worried about me, Elena continued, settling into her usual position on the floor. The marble was cold even through her heavy skirts, but she'd grown accustomed to it. Archmage Verena, too. They keep talking about balance, about Seraphina eventually remarrying and building a life alongside her duties. She paused, studying the barely perceptible rise and fall of Cassian's chest. 1 breath per minute, steady as clockwork. But Seraphina had 40 years to reach that point. I've had 3 weeks. 2 pulses, pause, 3 pulses. A pattern Elena had come to interpret as concern or caution. The 74 could still feel, still respond, even if they were forgetting the details of sensation itself. I'm not abandoning the vigil, Elena said firmly. A few hours at a celebration won't change that, but... She closed the notebook carefully, running her fingers over the worn leather cover. I need to be strategic. The magisters who want to move you haven't given up. Theron Greymark is building support quietly, waiting for the right moment. If I appear too unstable, too consumed by this duty, they'll use it as evidence that the current arrangement isn't sustainable. The grand hall doors opened with a soft creak. Mira entered, carrying a breakfast tray, her footsteps careful on the newly polished floors. The reconstruction was nearly complete now, the hall transformed around Cassian's frozen form. Where before he'd stood in a space of rubble and shadow, now he occupied the center of a cathedral-like chamber designed to honor the ceiling. Morning, miss, Mira said, setting the tray down beside Elena's notebook. Cook made your favorites. Says you need your strength for tonight. The young woman glanced at Cassian, her expression a mixture of gratitude and unease. Her brother had survived the southern market collapse because Cassian had sealed the breach before the corruption spread. Does he know about the celebration? He knows, Elena said, accepting the tea Mira poured. The warmth felt alien against her cold, numbed fingers. The 74 can still hear, still perceive. They're just distant. Mira nodded slowly, studying the corruption patterns that covered Cassian's exposed skin. It's like looking at a map, she said quietly. A map of something terrible and beautiful at the same time. That's exactly what it is, Elena said. A map of the price paid to keep the Voidweaver contained. A map we need to remember, because in 3 centuries, someone will need to read it again. The young woman shivered despite the morning sun now streaming through the windows. 3 centuries is a long time to hold something back. Yes, Elena agreed, watching how the light caught the geometric patterns of Cassian's corruption, making them shimmer like frost. It is. Mira departed after ensuring Elena ate at least some of the breakfast. Elena returned to her vigil position, notebook open, documenting the morning's communication patterns. She was learning to read the subtle variations in pulse timing, the way certain patterns seem to carry emotional weight beyond simple acknowledgement. 3 pulses, pause, 2 pulses, I hear you. 2 pulses, pause, 3 pulses, I'm here. 4 pulses, rapid, danger or warning. Single pulse, sustained. Understanding or agreement. The language was crude, limited, but it was something. More than Seraphina had managed in her first months as keeper. The corruption patterns themselves seemed to be evolving, becoming more deliberate, more organized. Whether that represented Cassian asserting control over the merged consciousness or the 74 adapting to their new existence, Elena couldn't yet determine. "Your sister arrived at the palace yesterday," Elena said after a long silence. She'd been dreading this conversation, but Lyanna Netherbane's presence made it unavoidable. "She's been asking to see you." The corruption patterns flared, a cascade of rapid pulses that Elena had learned meant distress. Cassian's heart rate increased fractionally, from 1 beat per minute to nearly 2. For him, that constituted panic. "I know," Elena said gently. "I know you didn't want her to see you like this, but King Aldrich granted her family honors as kin to a warden of the realm. She's been officially invited to the solstice celebration, and she's asking questions about why her brother is standing frozen in the grand hall instead of celebrating with her." 4 pulses. Rapid. Danger. "I've been telling her you're recovering," Elena continued, "that the sealing required such extreme measures that your body needs time to heal, that you're in a healing stasis and can't be disturbed." She pressed her palm against the cold marble floor. "She's 14, Cassian. She's brilliant and stubborn, and she doesn't believe me." 2 pulses, pause, 3 pulses. The concern pattern, stronger now. "I think," Elena hesitated, choosing her words carefully, "I think she needs to see you. Not to understand everything, she's too young for that burden, but she needs to see that you're here, that you're still fighting, that you didn't just disappear into some abstract heroic sacrifice." Single pulse, sustained. Agreement, reluctant but present. "After the celebration," Elena promised, "I'll bring her here when the hall is quiet. I'll stay with her, explain what I can without breaking her with the full truth. She deserves to know her brother is still here, still holding the darkness back." The corruption patterns settled into their baseline rhythm, the geometric circuits flowing with measured precision. Elena documented the exchange in her notebook, adding observations about the increased responsiveness when discussing Lyanna. The fear of forgetting his sister had driven so many of Cassian's decisions in those final desperate hours. Now, 3 weeks into his imprisonment, that fear remained his strongest emotional anchor. The morning passed in quiet documentation. Elena measured Cassian's core temperature, still 72 degrees, unchanged, counted his heartbeats, 60 per hour, steady, monitored the corruption patterns for any sign of progression or degradation. Everything remained stable, frozen in the moment of the trine. Sealing like a clock stopped at midnight. Archmage Verena arrived near midday, moving with the careful precision of someone still recovering from battle injuries. The older woman studied Elena for a long moment before speaking. "You look better," Verena said, "less like you're trying to join him in that frozen state." "I'm eating regularly," Elena replied. "Sleeping 6 hours most nights, maintaining the documentation protocols." She gestured to the stack of notebooks accumulating beside her vigil position. Seraphina's journal provided good guidance. Seraphina also took breaks, Verena said dryly. Attended court functions, maintained relationships outside this hall. She moved closer to Cassian, studying the corruption patterns with a scholar's analytical eye. "The patterns are more organized than they were 3 weeks ago." "Yes," Elena confirmed. "They're forming a deliberate language, basic but functional. He can communicate simple concepts, agreement, concern, warning." Verena's eyebrows rose. "That's remarkable and concerning. It suggests the merged consciousness is more cohesive than we anticipated." She traced one of the geometric circuits with her finger, careful not to touch Cassian's skin. The 74 shouldn't be able to coordinate this precisely. They should be fragmenting, losing coherence as individual memories fade. "Maybe that's what makes it work," Elena said. "They're not trying to maintain individual identity anymore. They're becoming something new, a collective consciousness that can function as a unified whole." "Or Cassian is asserting control," Verena said quietly. "Organizing them, directing them, maintaining coherence through sheer force of will." She met Elena's eyes. "Which means the corruption may be progressing differently than it did for the original 73. Is that good or bad?" "I don't know," Verena admitted. "The original sealing lasted 3 centuries because the founding mages fragmented, became static, stopped fighting the prison they'd created. If Cassian maintains active consciousness, maintains control, She trailed off, the implications hanging heavy between them. He might not last 3 centuries, Elena finished. Or he might last longer, or he might transform into something we can't predict. Exactly. Verena turned from Cassian to study Elena directly. Which is why tonight's celebration matters. You need to be seen as balanced, rational, capable of managing this vigil without losing yourself to it. Because if the council decides this arrangement is unstable, they'll move him. And moving him might kill all 74 souls holding the Voidweaver back. I understand, Elena said. I'll be there. I'll smile and dance and pretend everything is normal. Good. Verena's expression softened slightly. And Elena? It's all right to actually enjoy parts of it. Cassian wouldn't want you to sacrifice your entire life to this vigil. He made his choice so others could live, not so they could join him in stasis. After Verena departed, Elena returned to her position on the floor. The afternoon light painted long shadows across the grand hall, making Cassian's frozen form seem even more like a statue carved from darkness itself. She's right, Elena said quietly. You would hate knowing I'm turning this vigil into a prison for both of us. She traced the corruption patterns with her eyes, following the geometric circuits she'd memorized. But I can't help feeling that every moment away from here is a moment you're alone. Every hour I spend at celebrations or dinners or normal life is an hour you're holding the darkness back without anyone remembering why it matters. 3 pulses, pause, 2 pulses. I hear you. Single pulse, sustained. Agreement, but also something else. Permission, perhaps, or understanding. I'll go tonight, Elena promised. I'll represent the keeper position properly, show the council I can balance duty with life. But then I'm bringing Leanna here. She needs to see you. And you need to know she's safe, that she's thriving at the academy, that your sacrifice protected her future. The corruption patterns pulsed in response, a complex sequence Elena hadn't seen before. 4 pulses, pause, 3 pulses, pause, 2 pulses. She documented it carefully, uncertain of its meaning, but recognizing its significance. As sunset approached, Elena finally rose from her vigil position. Her legs protested the movement after hours of sitting, muscles stiff with cold and inactivity. She stretched carefully, working feeling back into her limbs. I'll be back before midnight, she said, gathering her notebooks and preparing to return to her chambers to dress for the celebration. And tomorrow we continue building our language. Tomorrow we find new ways to communicate across the boundary between frozen and living. 3 pulses. Pause. 2 pulses. I hear you. I remember. Elena paused at the grand hall doors, looking back at Cassian's frozen form silhouetted against the setting sun. The corruption patterns caught the orange light, transforming him into something both terrible and beautiful. A monument to the price of safety, a warning about the cost of survival, a reminder that some sacrifices demanded everything and offered no redemption, except the knowledge that the darkness remained contained. 3 centuries, Elena whispered. We'll face them together. Every day, every year, every decade. You hold the darkness back, and I'll make sure the world remembers why it matters. She left the grand hall as the last light faded, preparing to attend a celebration of life and light while carrying the weight of frozen darkness in her heart. The solstice marked the longest night of the year, the moment when darkness reached its peak before slowly surrendering to returning light. It seemed fitting. Cassian stood frozen at his own midnight, holding back a darkness that would never fully retreat. And Elena would stand vigil through all the long nights to come, maintaining the memory of what that frozen midnight meant. Behind her, in the darkening grand hall, corruption patterns pulsed with geometric precision, a language being built 1 pulse at a time, a conversation that would span centuries, a promise that even in frozen darkness, consciousness remained, watching, waiting, holding the line between the kingdom's present and its doom. 3 pulses. Pause. 2 pulses. I hear you. I remember. I'm here. And in the depths of the ceiling, where 74 souls merged into a living prison, Cassian Netherbane held the darkness back and listened to Elena's footsteps fade into the distance, knowing she would return. She always returned. That was what it meant to be keeper. Not just maintaining a vigil, but maintaining connection. Not just remembering the sacrifice, but ensuring the one who made it was never truly alone. Even in the longest night. even in the frozen darkness, even across 3 centuries of holding back the void. The solstice celebration would mark the kingdom's survival, its victory over the Voidweaver, its triumph over the Shadowvale threat. But here in the Grand Hall, in the gathering darkness, a different truth remained visible for anyone willing to see it. Victory had a face. It looked like a young mage frozen in corruption, breathing once per minute, heart beating once per minute. Consciousness merged with 73 others into a prison that would hold for 3 centuries. And victory had a cost, one that Elena would document, defend, and remember for however long the vigil required. The darkness deepened. The corruption patterns pulsed. And in the silence of the Grand Hall, the true meaning of the solstice became clear. Light returned because darkness was held back. Life continued because someone stood frozen at the boundary. The kingdom celebrated because one mage refused to let them fall. 3 pulses, pause, 2 pulses, I hear you, I remember, I'm here, always.
Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures. Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures.